Are you ready for winter? We only have 98 more days until winter of 2023 and 2024. So if you want weather forecasts all throughout the winter and beyond, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below as I do cover all of North America, including southern Canada, the United States here on this channel. And be sure to press the like button as well during this video to make sure we get this weather information out to as many people as possible. So let's get into the winter weather forecast update here. You can see the sea surface temperature anomalies in degrees Celsius currently. We do see the El Nino is alive and prevalent across the central Pacific Ocean here. With those red and orange blobs, that does mean we're in moderate to a strong El Nino territory, and this continues to actually strengthen and intensify over the next couple of months as we go into fall, closer there toward the winter as well. Looking at the latest index here, it continues to climb. We're at plus 1.1, and plus 1.5 is actually strong El Nino territory. So we're definitely climbing the ladder, getting closer to that strong El Nino territory. And I think by late fall into early winter, we will be able to achieve that feat as we do get closer here. And just looking at what a normal El Nino type of pattern looks like here, you usually have a persistent and extended Pacific jet stream and an amplified storm track that brings all of the Pacific moisture across the southern United States here down toward the Gulf Coast. And that also cools us down as well. We usually have cooler than average winters down here across portions of Texas, the Gulf Coast, and the Southeast, and even parts of the East Coast, whereas we have warmer than normal conditions for Alaska, for much of Canada here, especially western and southwestern Canada, and the northern tier of the United States with a less active polar jet than normal. We still could have cool shots, just know that. But overall, a warmer winter is expected in El Ninos up here to the north, with drier conditions across the Ohio and Tennessee River Valley. So that is something to watch for this upcoming winter. So let's take you through December of 2023. You can see the jet stream and you can see the cooler anomalies starting to build in across the south central United States. This signifies a very active subtropical jet coming off of the Pacific here. And it takes on more of the El Nino look as we have those warmer heights building across Canada into the northern tier of the United States. And you can see that reflected on the temperature anomalies here. This is what, when you average all 31 days of December out together, this is what you come up with the temperature anomalies. Not to say it won't be cool, but it does look rather warm for much of Canada and the Great Lakes and parts of the Northeast this upcoming December. Looks a little bit more around average across the southeast, and then as you get back across the Intermountain West and the West Coast here, probably talking more average temperatures for that December, and a very active, very interesting storm track taking shape in December as well. Initially, I think we're going to start winter off pretty dry across much of the Sacramento Valley here into Southern California, getting into Arizona and down into West Texas, where we have some polar jets still hanging on up here to portions of the Pacific Northwest, bringing some early season snows across these areas that extends into December. And then I think we already get going with a nor'easter storm track right out of the gates into December from the southeast all the way up the east coast toward Maine and even eastern Canada. Yeah, there could be some bigger snowstorms, possibly a couple of blizzards even here as we go into December as well. So definitely seeing a white Christmas across the eastern United States, probably into December. Then as we transfer into January, the El Nino continues to strengthen. It's pretty much at its peak at this point, and I think the subtropical jet's really going to take off as we go into January, as we turn into the new year here. And that's where we start to see more of that classic El Nino look, especially when we're in strong El Nino territory with the warmer temperature anomalies across Canada and the northern United States, but very cool across the southeast and the southern tier from that subtropical jet out here. And you can see it goes even further to the south in January. And it may go as far south as the Rio Grande Valley, much of the Gulf Coast, even down toward northern Florida with that track of low pressure systems, and then turning up the East Coast for more nor'easter potential as we go through January. Something we'll have to watch, though, is maybe a couple atmospheric rivers trying to set up across the West Coast from California near central California all the way up into northern California, western Oregon, and Washington. We'll have to keep an eye on that as we go into January. It is trending drier from the Midwest into the Great Lakes and southern Canada as we go through January. So while we could have some snow, when you average out all of the days in January together, it does look much drier as we go through that period. Transitioning into February, we're really still seeing that continuing with that subtropical jet across the United States here. February does look like a pretty cool month overall. I think there could be a cold outbreak that moves down from portions of Canada as we have maybe a stratospheric warming event potentially. Something we'll have to keep an eye on into February. That could bleed down into the Midwest and getting down into the eastern United States. We could have some cold outbreaks, especially during early to mid-February. And then that would be for more of a positive PNA trying to develop across the western United States for a time as we go into February there. That could dry us out. So if we have a positive PNA trying to set up here, that could dry us out a little bit, in exception for Southern California as we have a little bit of that trajectory of that subtropical jet. So San Diego, Los Angeles, down toward Phoenix, we could still see some rainfall and some snow in some outlying areas as we go there in through February. But that subtropical jet is all the way south into the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida here, and it's very dry with our air across portions of the Ohio Valley into the mid-Missouri Valley with that cool Arctic air, very brisk, very dry across those areas into February. And then transitioning into March of 2024, we start to loosen up the pattern a little bit. You see the building heights now across the Pacific Northwest. That will lead to some warmer temperatures than normal for March of 2024. That may move a little bit further south there toward the Pacific Southwestern states for California, Nevada, getting into Arizona and Utah. And we still could have lingering effects of some cold air outbreaks across the eastern two-thirds of the country, really right along and east of the Mississippi River. That's where the strongest of our cold outbreaks could be into March. And we also still have a really stagnant storm track as well, really favoring the Gulf Coast and the East Coast as we go through March. Very dry up here toward the Great Lakes into the Midwest and Ohio Valley, and also equally dry across the Pacific Northwest as that polar jet stream really just doesn't get that active throughout much of the winter and even into March. That stays the same. So we're seeing a lot of precipitation here across the southern plains, the southeast, the east coast, and even New England as we go through the winter of 2023 into 2024. Just breaking this down a little bit further for you folks here. Here are three different storm tracks that I think could happen this upcoming winter, with the main storm track here in red across portions of California. We have a low pressure system moving across the southern tier of the United States, bringing the cold air a little bit further to the south and also bringing that moisture further south as well, which could set up some snowstorms in areas that haven't seen a lot of snow in the past few years. And then as that turns up the east coast and just off the coast, depending on how far off the coast we have those low pressure systems, could be setting up some big snowstorms, some nor'easters, some blizzards up here across the northeast with those gusty winds on the backside. So something we'll keep an eye on there. Storm track number 2 in the blue has more of a less amplified pattern here, kind of a cross-country classic type of pattern where we see more of the low pressure systems coming across the Sacramento Valley through the Rockies there into the lee side of the Rockies, and that could generate some bigger snowstorms for the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes region with this storm track. And then finally, our third storm track, probably less likely this season, will be the ones where we have that northwest flow. And if we do have this, which would likely be in February or March, where we have those cooler and cold air outbreaks from Canada into the United States, and that could bring some colder, fluffier snows down across the upper Midwest into the Ohio Valley, and then turning up through New England as we go with that storm track number 3. But this is the less likely solution. So If you're looking at this, the most likely would be in red, the next most likely would be in blue, and then the least likely would be in the yellow here for the storm tracks, I think, this upcoming winter. And when putting it together, if you're looking for big snowstorms out there, over 8 inches of snow in one storm, this is my confidence here for this winter in that occurring. Obviously, anywhere in the light blue, you have a 0% chance to a 25% chance of that occurring. In the medium blue, you have a 25% to 50% chance of that happening. Places like Milwaukee, Chicago, Des Moines, back to Kansas City, maybe as far south as Dallas, Little Rock, Memphis, Nashville, and then getting over here toward Roanoke, Virginia. And then in the pinks and purples here, that is a 50 to 75% chance of 8 inches or more snow in one snowstorm itself. That covers much of New England, the Northeast, getting down through the central Ohio Valley here. Places like St. Louis, Indianapolis, Columbus, Ohio, Pittsburgh, New York City, Boston, those areas in the crosshairs, also Baltimore, Philadelphia, those type of areas with that side of confidence as we go through portions of this winter. When putting it all together, though, with the winter 2023-2024 regional breakdown, we're starting up here in the Pacific Northwest in the orange. You can see warmer and drier conditions overall across those areas going through much of the winter this winter. Cool and wet across the Pacific Southwest into the Four Corners region with an active subtropical jet bringing more moisture further to the south and also a lot of those cooler air masses as well. We do have some snowstorms still possible. We're not going to go the entire winter without snow up here in the northern plains of the upper Midwest, but we're not probably seeing as much snow as we have seen the last few winters. That is for sure. So just some snowstorms up here, and it will be cold from time to time. You're not going to see a very warm winter all winter. There will be cold outbreaks from time to time, especially February into March. More of a wild card here in the middle across the Missouri Valley, the lower Midwest into the Great Lakes region here. This comes with potentially a lot of different factors. We could be seeing some cold air outbreaks, some warm-ups, maybe some severe weather from time to time into parts of this region, some bigger snowstorms, just kind of a wild card on what you see. You could see a little bit of everything, maybe even some ice storms in the mix as well. Further to the south, cool and some snow, a lot snowier than we've seen, a lot cooler than we've seen the past couple of winters down here across most of the Lone Star State of Texas, most of Dixie Alley, getting into the Tennessee Valley and southeast here, lots more snow as well, and then blizzards from the mid-Atlantic up through the New England and the Northeast. I think we could have some big nor'easters this winter, bringing some feet of snow and potentially even some whiteout conditions and very strong winds and cold air on the backside of those for this upcoming winter. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. If you want additional weather forecast updates, make sure to follow me on Twitter or X at hweather420. That link is down below the description of the video. Make sure to go follow me there. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching today's video. Make sure to share this with friends, family, and on social media. I much appreciate it, folks. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so I can keep you ahead of all the weather this upcoming winter. And make sure to like the video, giving it a thumbs up down below if you like today's weather forecast. And I appreciate that, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their day out there.